Hi guys, it's Kelly. I'm the lifestyle engineer. How are you guys feeling today? Hopefully everybody's doing good. Today I also have a guest with me today, so this is awesome. Taylor is not a coach. She is my friend and has been my friend for I don't know several years. We have been through a lot together, including I got to perform her wedding, which was fantastic. And then we've been also long distance friends for a while, so um, yeah, not as much contact, so we're, like, really excited just to see each other today, forget forget anything else. So Taylor, let's start with the simple stuff. Tell us, a little bit about you, like, what do you do, that kinda stuff.
Sure. Well, hello everybody. I'm Taylor. I currently am a new mom, so that's my role right now. But I'm going back to work shortly. I am a special education aide for the Valdez School District. So I work with special needs kids, and it's fabulous. I love my job. Other than that, I have two dogs and an awesome husband named Levi. Thanks to Kelly marrying us. Yeah, that's pretty much my life in a nutshell.
Well, that's cool. So when we were here today, we agreed to talk about a very sensitive topic, is that your baby now is a rainbow baby.
Yeah.
And then for those of you who don't know, a rainbow baby is a baby that's been born after having loss such as a miscarriage or even a child who has died in infancy through various means such as SIDS or whatever. So it's kind of a very sensitive topic. So Taylor, do you mind giving us a little bit about the history that happened with you?
Yeah, sure. So I found out I was pregnant May of 2020, and I was over the moon, of course. We were trying for a couple months. I think we were trying for about 3 months, and it finally happened. So we were just so excited. And it was really extra exciting too because my best friend just found out she was pregnant. So we were only 5 weeks apart. So it was like we were going to be raising our children together. Super excited. So I went to the first appointment at like 6 weeks, I think, is typically when they have you come in for your first ultrasound. And things just didn't look quite right. I mean, the little baby was there. There was a heartbeat, but they didn't really tell me how things were. So I left just feeling like just wrong. I just didn't know what was going on. And so I waited a few days. I didn't hear from the doctor's office. So I was just panicking. So I ended up calling them, and they finally got back to me, and they said the baby's heart rate was only about 69 beats per minute, which is extremely low. It's usually should be like 160, sometimes higher. So that immediately just made me freak out. I was like, something's definitely wrong. I don't know what to do. So it was just a lot of days of turmoil and crying and just waiting because the doctor's office just didn't really like help me through it or give me any information at all. So I was just like struggling on my own, like, what the heck is going on? So finally, they got me in about 2 weeks later, which is a long time when you don't know what's going on with your baby. And we went in and they did the ultrasound, and it just, I was watching the screen and it just didn't seem right. And the tech can't really tell you anything. So I was waiting to meet with the doctor, and then that's when she told us that we have had a missed miscarriage. So basically, when that happens, is you have a miscarriage, and but you don't start bleeding. You don't show any symptoms of losing the baby. You just think you're still pregnant. So yeah, I mean, it was extremely heartbreaking hearing those words coming from the doctor. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of like the story of how it all happened. So I was about 9 weeks when it happened to me. But yeah,
And,
that's my.
and you shrug, but it's like that has to have been like totally devastating, especially in the moment to just find out that what you wanted, which was a baby, is not meant to be at the moment. I
Right.
mean, did you seek therapy after that or
I didn't. Luckily, my husband was just really supportive because after that, I mean, I just cried and cried for days. And it's just like wondering why, and you don't, there is no answer why. It just happens. And it happens to a lot of women. And this experience has made me realize how many women it actually happens to. Because a lot of people, I was public about it eventually and did share it on Facebook. And a lot of people reached out to me and said, I experienced this too. And that made me feel less alone, I guess. It doesn't take the pain away, but it just feels like, you have support from other people. But yeah, I mean, I think I just took my time and just really just felt my emotions when I felt them and just cried when I needed to cry and just vented to my husband like pretty much all the time. So that's kind of like what I did to just help myself feel better. But yeah, it didn't really take away the pain much. Just sucks.
Mhm. No, no, I can't imagine that it would take away any of the pain. I mean, and sadly, I mean, I'm gonna be like, the bearer of news, but there's when people go through this, it's like there's no way to quote unquote get over it. You just have to go through it, and it's horrible and it sucks and it doesn't feel good. And there's part of your brain that wants to go, okay, I need to fix this, but there's also no fix for it either.
Right. Like, what do you do? Yeah. And then along with, you know, the miscarriage comes with the fear of, since this was like my first time being pregnant, I was just terrified that I would never get to have this experience of being a mother. I never thought, I'm like, well, what if I can't have children? Or what if it won't happen for us again? Or what if I have more losses after this? And, that does happen for a lot of people. So it's just like all that fear that comes wrapped in with it. Like, how do you even start the journey of trying again? And when's the right time? It just depends on the person and how you feel about it.
Right.
So, yeah.
So how long did it take you to decide that it was right to try again? I mean, not that
Well,
there's any timeline to it, but
yeah, the other thing with miscarriage too that I didn't understand until I went through it was how incredibly painful it is. You can choose to have a D&C if you're far enough along, or you can choose to take pills at home, or you can just go the natural route and just wait to see if things happen on their own. So I decided to just wait it out and see if things would happen on their own, and they did. And it was just so painful. Like I was having contractions and just awful experience. I was just like clenching my fists and just I felt like I was in labor and it was awful. So after getting through all the painful things and helping my body get back to normal and mentally trying to heal a little bit, we waited about 2 months before we decided to try again, before I felt like mentally ready and like physically ready.
okay. That's really not that long of a period of time.
No,
I
it's
mean,
not.
so I mean, you talk about, I mean, and this is something that I wasn't aware of either, is that when you have a miscarriage, it's painful. I mean, so how, I mean, because said you were at this point probably like 9 weeks along ish.
Right. Mhm.
Um, so how long did that kind of take you to physically process?
Um, so I think it only took a matter of days before I found out the news that the baby was passed. And then once the bleeding and stuff started, like the intense bleeding and like passing of everything was like one whole evening. And luckily my mom just had this like intuition thing and she told my husband, you should probably just call into work tonight and be with Taylor because I think she really needs you tonight. And so he came home from work and thank God he did because that was the night like everything was passing through my body and that was like so incredibly painful. And then after that night, I think it took probably like 2 weeks of just like regular like period like bleeding before things kind of like cleared up. And then I started feeling like a little bit more normal again.
Okay. And at least you had somebody there with you. I mean, going through that alone would have been very difficult. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's impossible because I know women who have been through it alone and have, talked about it. And I just can't imagine myself what it's like to go through it. So, I mean, it seems very brave to me that you could. I don't know that you get much choice. Your body does what it does, but it's just extremely brave. And I'm very glad that you weren't alone because, well, it, even though it doesn't make it necessarily easier, it's just comforting to know that there's somebody else there.
Absolutely. Yeah, he
Um,
was just inside the whole time, so it definitely helped as well as
right,
it could have, you know?
right. So when you were going through the grieving process, and I use process loosely here because grieving doesn't necessarily end. I mean, a process kind of suggests that there's an end to it. And grieving is one
Right.
of those emotions that it kind of comes and goes and it hits you at weird times. We know this. Um, but when you were going through at least the initial stages of it, was was there a point where you were like, okay, eh, um, what do we do? What can we do to kind of like honor the life that almost was?
Yeah, actually, so like you said, it was just kind of like a roller coaster. Like some days I felt good and then some days I didn't, and it was just, off days. But we actually got a hibiscus tree
Hmm.
for our lost little loved one. And so we have this beautiful little tree that has gorgeous pink blooms that just keep, reemerging over and over again. So my husband kind of got that for us. The branches or like the stem of the tree, I don't know what you call it. I'm not a tree expert. They kind of
Trunk of the tree.
yeah, it just seems so tiny to be a trunk, you know what I mean? But it's it's interwoven and it's just like kind of like the trunk of the tree is like the three of us kind of like twined together, and just the blooms just remind me of just a beautiful little baby. So it's a really precious tree to me, and since our marriage tree didn't survive, this is kind of like redemption. So you should know what I'm talking about. We had a marriage tree in our ceremony and it died.
I do remember the marriage tree, and I am so sorry your tree died. Please don't take that as forewarning because Mother Nature has a really odd sense of humor. Just trust me, Mother Nature has a really odd sense of humor. Um, so, I mean, like you planted the tree. So, I mean, like, did you do like not necessarily like a full blown funeral, but something similar to it when you planted the tree? Was there any ceremony to it? Was it just you and
Not
Levi
really. And
together? Sorry, go ahead.
no, we didn't really do anything. No, that's okay. We kind of broke up there a little bit. We didn't do anything really special. We just bought it together, and I just kind of told him like what it meant to me, because he surprised me with the tree because I told him I really wanted it. And so I kind of told him like what it meant to me and like why I wanted it, and he was like, "Wow, that's really special," and I really like that you thought of it that way. And it's nice because it's a tree that needs to be indoors for the winter. So right now we just moved it in because it's starting to frost outside, but so now it's in our living room and I can see its beautiful flowers every day. But
Yeah,
yeah, we didn't really do anything together like formally to get through the grief. It was just kind of taking it day by day, and I feel like it was a little bit easier for Levi to get through because it didn't happen to him physically.
right.
I feel like I struggled with it a lot more than maybe he did.
So, okay, so like as a woman, it's like quote unquote our birthright to be able to have children and raise them. I mean, that's kind of part of the identity of being a woman. Um, so how did that, going, okay, what if I can't have children? How did that affect you? I mean, did it in that way? I mean, was there the questions of, am I even really a woman? And I asked this just because I went through it when I had a hysterectomy. So I'm like, I can't imagine. I mean, that this was my body betrayed me, and I still had no plans to have children at that point, but still went through it going, well, I'm giving away part of my identity as a woman, which isn't even true, but that's part of where your brain goes. So I'm just wondering, did that happen to you as well?
Um, I guess I just kind of felt like I knew it wasn't my fault, but I feel like everybody goes through the process of like my body failed me, kind of like what you said. Like I failed. Like I'm not going to be able to do this. Like why do I have everything set up within me but I can't do it? Like I don't understand why. Like some people can have four children in a row and nothing happens. And I don't, not blaming other people for having successful pregnancies, you know what I mean? But like
Right.
you're wondering internally like why can't I do it, and you feel some sense of guilt. But I really tried to work on that like every day, like not blaming myself, there was nothing I could have done differently, to prevent it from happening. So, um, yeah, I guess that's just kind of how I felt.
Right. I I can totally understand that. Um, so let's go on to the happier topic. And is that you have a baby now.
Yes.
She is 4 months, 3 months.
She will be 3 months old on the 23rd. So almost 3 months old.
So almost. Okay. I think it was like close because I
Yes.
haven't actually met her yet. So it's like, to me, it's like, okay, I've seen the pictures, but I haven't had a chance to like drive over there and meet her yet.
Right.
So it's not, it's real, but it's not quite real to me. So,
Right.
it's that whole, if it hasn't happened to you, I mean, it's real, but it's not quite real. Like, you felt about, yeah, same thing. Um, so, okay. So you found out that you were pregnant after going through, and you had done some grieving, and you've done a lot of physical healing. Obviously, you found out you were pregnant. How long after you started trying did that happen? And then I'm just trying to set up a timeline.
So, yeah, it took us 6 months to conceive again. So once we started trying after the loss, took 6 cycles, and that was really hard too because it's like every month negative tests, and that really like just beats you down after a while, and it just gets to be to the point where it's like I don't want to do this anymore because it's just so draining. It's like just stressing you out. So, and you really don't want the experience to be a stressful one when you're trying to get pregnant, especially between you and your partner. Like, that's just not even fun. Like, we gotta have sex or we're never gonna, you know what I mean? You don't want it to turn into that either. It, like, puts a lot of pressure
No.
on your partner too. So,
Performance
after,
anxiety would be high, yes.
yeah. So after 6 months, I actually decided it was like right around when my period was due, and I tried to not let myself take pregnancy tests early because, it's just a letdown. But I was like, I couldn't wait any longer. And I was like, whatever, I'm just going to take a test and it's probably negative, no big deal. So I took it, and then I just sat on the counter and I hopped in the shower for work. And I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, yeah, whatever, it's probably negative. I don't care. I'm over it. And then I got out and I just kind of like glanced at it quick and then like looked away. And then I was like, wait a second. I think there's a freaking line on that thing. Like I picked it up and I was like, holy shit. I didn't, oh, sorry. I don't know if I can swear
No,
in here.
you can cuss. It's fine. It's all good. I,
I
I,
was just
I
like, I was just so shocked. I couldn't believe it. So I was just dripping wet. I barely even had my towel on, and I ran in the room and I'm like, Levi, like, I'm pregnant. It's a positive test. I just was over the moon. So excited. I didn't even know how I was going to go to work that morning because I'm like, how am I going to process this to be at work? So, yeah,
okay, but I'm assuming you did go to work and you did process.
I did.
Uh, okay, and then I mean, so like you had the initial excitement, and then after that, was there like a fear that set in that what if this happens again? I mean,
Oh, yeah, big time. So of course I was super excited, and I cried right away too, and then I just had the fear right away, basically. Like I let myself be happy that day. But then leading up to my appointment is what was giving me just a lot of anxiety because the last time I went in for the first appointment, that's where it all started going wrong. And I was just like, what if we go in again and the same thing is happening? And I just don't know how I can do this again. I don't know how I can go through it again. So that was my biggest fear. But yeah, luckily it didn't turn out that way. The first appointment was amazing. So
that's yes. Obviously, it did not turn out that way, and that is
me too.
extremely fortunate because now we have the little one. Um, so I know that you took several months before you decided to publicly announce that you were pregnant, and I mean, and was that like, I mean, I know that it was a conscious decision, but like, did you have a deadline in mind, or was it just when I felt secure enough, I'm going to make this announcement?
Well, everybody always talks about waiting, 12 weeks before you announce, just so it's safe, that nothing bad happens to the baby before you like tell other people. So, I did wait 12 weeks before I announced just because to wait to see if anything bad was going to happen. But a part of me also thinks that if you want to share it as soon as you find out, you can too because like we talked about miscarriage being something that women are afraid to talk about or feel like they shouldn't talk about it. So I feel like a lot of people are not waiting the 12 weeks anymore and are just coming right out and being like, we're pregnant. And if anything bad happens, then everybody's right there along with me for support and stuff like that, which is really cool.
Which I with both my boys, I announced right away that I was pregnant. I mean, so it was like as soon as I found out, it was like, yay, I'm pregnant. Um,
Yeah,
and I never thought about anything going wrong. It was just, oh, you're pregnant, and this is what it happens and what you do.
right.
And again, keep in mind, my kids are in their 20s. I mean, my kids are not that much younger than you are. So it, in those days, it was very different of, miscarriage wasn't really talked about. So it was kind of a mystery thing that just happened to people random, I mean, it just is something that happens to other people. It doesn't necessarily happen to you. And it was a complete mystery. And I mean, so today I think it's a little different where people are more open and especially women are more open and talking about this is my experience with it. And then we're finding out that it's a lot more common than initially thought. I mean, it's just kind of insane. So yeah, I announced it right away. I never thought twice about it. And I would think that in some ways it is comforting to know that there is that if you announce right away that most people are going to rally around you and support you should something go wrong.
Right. And that's my thought too. That's I wanted to share it with people because I wanted other women to know that they were not alone and to not feel like they couldn't have somebody who's gone through it to talk to. But that's just the way I wanted to grieve. I know I did join a couple of support groups on Facebook. I guess that's
Mhm.
one way that I didn't do therapy, but joining those groups really did help me. But there were a lot of women on there that shared that they just didn't want to share the grief with anybody. They wanted to be alone and they didn't want other people knowing. But I guess that's just how they wanted to go on their path. But I felt like it was easier for me to have other people to talk to about it. So just
Right.
depends on your personality, I guess.
Yeah. And okay, so you said you joined support groups, which I mean, therapy does not necessarily have to be like formal go to a therapist. I mean, there's options of different things. I mean, support groups are one. There's
Yeah.
also self-help books is another. I mean, so when I talk therapy, I mean, it's a broad umbrella word compared to, well, it's just a licensed therapist. So there's a difference, I guess. I don't know. But so I mean the support groups. So I mean, like, did you like have actual conversations with people? Like, did you do Zoom meetings? Was it just, Facebook support of that you make a post? I mean, what was that like? What was offered in the groups? I guess is what I'm asking.
Sure. So it was just like a post where women could share their stories of what happened to them. And then we could just like be there for support and just be like, this happened to me too. And just saying like it gets better or, just being a shoulder to, cry on, I guess, just to just get it out there because sometimes it just feels good to talk about it because if you bottle it in for so long it weighs on you. So yeah, just a lot of women would make posts and share their story, or they would share like, I'm pregnant with my rainbow baby, this can happen for you too. Or it was really nice just having questions about when you're going through physically the loss, like, is this normal? Is it normal for me to be feeling this way? Or like, what's the process going to be like? You know what I mean? So that was really cool to have a place to go to with women who have experienced it, are going through it currently, to know like what's next or what am I going to experience. So it was really
Okay.
nice to have.
And I will get the names of those groups from Taylor to make sure that we post them in the show notes so that if you need them, you'll have access to be able to find them instead of just guessing. Because I have no idea what would you even, search for to find them. So we'll post the names of the ones that she used. And obviously there are probably others out there, but at least it'll give you a good starting point. Um, okay, so once you got past the 3-month mark and you announced your pregnancy with Harlow, were you feeling still pretty secure at that point?
No. I was like, I watched a funny video the other day of just like this woman explaining, like, okay, I got a positive pregnancy test. When I reach 12 weeks, I'll be less anxious. When I go to my 20-week anatomy scan, I'll be less anxious. Once the baby's here, I'll feel less anxious. And then it's just like, every step along the way, it's like you're still feeling anxious. Like even though I got through all those stages and she's been perfectly healthy the whole way here, now that she's here, I'm still anxious. Like I'm like, "Are you okay? Why are you blinking that way? Why are you doing this? Like, are you okay?" You know? Like
Okay, so
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 yeah, throughout
some
the
of that
pregnancy,
is some of that has nothing to do with Harlow being a rainbow baby, and some of it has nothing to do with that. Some of it is just being a
being a
new
mom.
mom
Yep.
because I did not have a loss like yours, and I was like that with both my kids. So even the second one does not alleviate any of the anxiety.
I believe it completely. Yeah. Yeah.
That is just your mind being new mom and new mommy hormones. There
Totally.
is nothing that is just kind of normal. Uh,
Yeah. It's stressful.
being a new parent is stressful. Doesn't matter. That part just does not matter. New parent, once they're here, you're like, okay, you got all your fingers, you got all your toes, and then you count them every morning for weeks on end because you want to make sure they still
Yeah.
have all their fingers and toes. Like they're suddenly just going to disappear.
Right.
So the way our brains kind of process new motherhood is totally crazy. And let's face it, let's just have a good laugh about it because, well, yeah. And so you talk about the anxiety, so I mean, I know some of it is just being a new mom. I mean, because let's face it, it's a new skill. You would think that being a mommy is like the most natural thing in the world, but no, you have a ton of questions when you're a new mom. You feel like totally insecure. Feel like you've no idea what you're doing. That here, okay, wait, I wanted this new life to take care of. And now that I have it, what the hell do I do with it?
Yeah. Right. You're sending me home from the hospital with this child? Like, what do I do now?
And there's
Yeah.
no yeah, and there's no instruction manual. You didn't give me a manual to study. There's nothing I can do. What do you want me to do with it? But I mean, so okay, so I mean, those are kind of like the new mommy things. I mean, like, do you have anything that you can like identify as saying this is above and beyond what most people talk about as being a new mom? That's like anxiety driven.
Um, I don't know. I guess just like all the little things that I never thought about, like if she has like a little cough or anything like that, it just gives me anxiety. Like I'm always scared that there's something wrong with her, I guess. But like you said, it's just kind of like a new mom thing. So just everything she does, I'm always like second guessing it. I'm like, oh my God, maybe I need to take her in or things like that. But I think a lot of anxiety with being a new mom is just the lack of sleep. um, the first
Oh yeah.
4 weeks were absolutely brutal, and I didn't have any idea how hard it was gonna be. You feel like a crazy person when you don't get sleep, and it's like, dealing with stressful situations like a baby screaming and you have no sleep and your milk's coming in and all of these things. It's just like, how do people do this? Like, what the hell? I was freaking out. I'm like, this is way harder than I ever imagined. So,
Not not to mention that okay, your body is healing because you just had this baby, so muscles are working their way back to where they were, and you're also basically bleeding for, I want to say that it was like 6 weeks ish of
yeah,
just basically
it's
having
been
the
horrible.
same hormonal ups and downs as if you have your period. So you
Hmm.
have the wacky hormones, you have your period for an extended period of time, no sleep, screaming baby who needs something, that they do, but you don't necessarily know what. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I have changed you, I have fed you, I have put clothes on you, I have taken clothes off of you, I have rocked you, I have snuggled you. I am not sure what else you want at this point. Please, somebody just tell me what they want.
Right. Yes, exactly. It's just like not knowing what they need when you did all the things that you think they would need and you still don't know what's wrong. And it's like, yeah, you're bleeding, you're sweating, you just don't feel like yourself. You can't sleep, and then breastfeeding is its own topic that's extremely difficult if when you're first starting out with it. So that it was just a lot all at once, and it's just like, oh man, I don't know how to do this, but I have to do this kind of thing. And you love your child, of course, but it's just like, damn, this is really freaking hard. So I'm glad those first few weeks were through that and we're at a much better, stable mentally place.
Yes, it does improve, ladies. It does. It gets better. Um, I don't know. Do you have any advice for somebody who is going through this? Do you have any words of wisdom that might, to pass along?
I actually took a course called Taking Care of Babies, and it's a course. She has a newborn course, and it teaches you how to soothe them with swaddling and teaching you how to set them up for success for sleeping through the night. It's not a sleep training course, but it just kind of teaches you how to keep their little tummies full throughout the day and teaches you about their wake windows, which is something I never knew about babies, is that babies from 0 to 12 weeks should only be awake from like 60 to 90 minutes. And after that, they get extremely overtired. And trying to put an overtired baby to sleep is a freaking disaster. So just making sure that she's getting like adequate naps. And, sometimes babies don't nap and it's okay. But just trying to do that and keeping their little tummies full throughout the day sets you up for like successful nights. And once I took this class, literally she started sleeping more every night. Like it just kept getting better and better and better. So I definitely recommend that course and we can link it or whatever. But
Yeah.
that was a lifesaver for me because once I started getting sleep again, I just was like, all right, we can do this.
Yes, that sleep is so important. We don't realize how important sleep is until you just don't get it. And then it gets horrible. Um, so yeah, that sounds a lot gentler than what was recommended for both my kids because back in the day, all we had was Dr. Ferber. I mentioned this in another interview. Do not Ferberize your children. Do not follow that. Find something else because there are so many better methods out there that it sounds like this is one of them that it's like, you know what, you know, learn baby behavior and then, what do you need to do to help ensure that they're going to sleep, even though it may not be effective 100% of the time.
Right.
Ferberization, don't do it. It was awful.
Don't do it.
Just gonna put that out there. But I mean, seriously, back in that time, that's what we had. At least that's what
Right.
I had access to. It's kind of
Right.
like, okay, in the 70s they had Dr. Spock, which he was saying, hey, it's okay to smoke around your baby. So
Go ahead,
obviously
bro.
learn better.
Right. Yeah, and that's what's nice as a new mom in this age. It's like you have so many resources available to you. I mean, it can be overwhelming too with all the different things. Like even just the amount of like baby products is so overwhelming. It's just like, well, is this swing better than this swing? Or like you go a little like nuts, like trying to figure out what's the best thing to use. It's like there is just way too much out there, but it can be good and bad because I've had a lot of cool stuff. My parents are like, we never had that, and that's freaking awesome.
Well,
So
I mean, even when I went shopping for your shower, I'm like, I never had half of this stuff. And I'm like, and I still stuck to the stuff. It's like, okay, here, this is what I did because this was very effective. I mean, am sure that you haven't even used it yet because she's not old enough, but the whole, here, this is what you use to make your own baby food. And I did it with my kids. It was great. And it just tastes better than the stuff you buy in the jar. Trust me, make your
oh
own.
yeah.
It just tastes better and they
Plus it doesn't
appreciate
have
it.
all those like additives and
Y-
other
ex-
icky
Exactly.
ingredients that because you make it yourself. So yeah, I totally believe in that.
Exactly. So yeah,
Can't
ladies,
wait.
make your own baby food. It's super simple. It's literally a stick blender and just if it's not blended enough, just blend it some more. It'll happen. Trust me. And it's whatever you're eating too. I mean, my kids started out with a very varied diet. I mean, when you introduce new foods, it's a little different. But anyway, that's another topic. Sorry, I will go gallivanting off. So yes, try not. So advice here, ladies, is make sure you use resources. There's a ton of them out there. And then if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry, that's normal, especially with the number of options that you have. And here's another piece that just comes from me is that what, dive in, try something, and if it doesn't work, well, guess what? You can try something new.
Right.
I mean, because let's face it, some kids respond better to one thing than the other. It sounds like you found the perfect thing for little baby and that she's sleeping, and that's great. And that there's other methods out there. So if you just skip the fertilization one, find a different method because there's like a ton of them. All right. Thanks, Taylor. I want to thank you so much for your time. Thanks, guys,
Thank
for
you.
joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. I have to remember how to stop it.